Social justice. It's the effect of systemic progress. It's not about this moment, it's about every moment. It's not about immediate change, it's about constant momentum. Saybrook University has been doing the work since 1971, educating inquisitive, informed, and inspired leaders to change the world for the better. Learn more at saybrook.edu.
This week at Macy's, get 20 to 65% off great Valentine's Day gifts they're sure to love. Give them something amazing from the Effie Diamond and Gemstone collections, now 60 to 65% off. All sterling silver jewelry, 65% off. And more dazzling fine jewelry, 45 to 55%, plus an extra 20% off. Plus, Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. First and foremost, I'd just like to let you all know that I have received a ton of emails with people interested in the opportunity to co-host a segment with me at the end of the month. There's still time. If you're interested, go ahead and shoot me an email. Make sure you put in the subject line that it has to do with the opportunity to co-host a segment with me. And then at the end of the month, I'll draw the names randomly from a hat, and the person whose name is drawn will have the opportunity to co-host a segment with me on the last day of the month. So if you have not sent me an email in regards to that yet and something you're interested in being involved in, please make sure you shoot me those emails soon. And for those of you who have sent me emails already, well, I already have them printed out, and I'll be taking those emails and the names from those emails, and I'll put them in a hat, and I will randomly draw 3 names out. And the first name that I draw will have the opportunity to co-host the segment, and if that person can't or does not want to, then I'll move on to the second name, and then the third name if we have to. But we're going to continue to do this monthly. We'll have somebody co-host a segment here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show at least once a month, maybe more. And I got some other things that I have in the works that have to do with more interaction with the audience. Because for me, that's the funnest part of this, is when I interact with all of you, because there's so many people out there that I can still learn from. And every day, every single day, I try to make it a point to learn at least one thing that I did not know the day before. And when I interact with all of you, I learned 50 things that I didn't know before, not just about this case. So I'm very, very pumped to have more interaction with all of you and to have one of you pop on here and co-host a segment with me. So as we get closer and I start getting the emails all together and find out just who is going to be involved, I will send out emails to all of you to confirm that I received the email from you, and I will let the person know that they won a couple of days before the actual segment. That way you'd be ready and we can figure out a time and what works for you, etc., etc. All right, now, on to our article. Today we have an article from the Palm Beach Post, and the headline is, Editorial, Criminal Justice System Still on Trial in the Jeffrey Epstein Aftermath. And that is a very straight to the point headline, and it is fitting because that is the case. The justice system is certainly just as much on trial in the court of public opinion as the perpetrators in this case. The justice system and the prosecutors and the FBI are supposed to protect the populace from animals like this. They're not supposed to facilitate the behavior. They're not supposed to protect those engaging in the behavior. But folks, that is what we had for decades. That is what we had for 4 presidential administrations. Think about that for a minute. This man operated for at least 4 presidential administrations, and he was being protected from on high. We know that this wasn't just a trafficking ring. We know that this just wasn't your run-of-the-mill human trafficking ring. We know that there's a lot more there. And when you pull back the curtain and you expose what is going on in the dark shadows of the room, people start to take notice. And that's what's been going on here. We're starting to pull back the curtain. And what we're seeing is grotesque and disgusting. The author of the article is the Palm Beach Post editorial board. It's long past time to pull back the curtain on the ugly truth about how the criminal justice system dropped the ball on the Jeffrey Epstein case. And that's for sure. I've been saying that since the beginning when we started all of this. None of this had a good smell to it. From the very beginning, I knew something was amiss in this case. The second I started reading about it. And again, like I've said a million times here on the podcast, my initial motivation was chasing down the financial crimes and the connections in the government and to the people within the financial sector. That was my main motivation going into this. I really had no idea the extent of the abuse. And once I started reading and found out the actual extent of the abuse, and then especially as I got deeper into the case and started interacting with some of the survivors and speaking with them and hearing the story from their own words, it really changed my focus. Now, obviously, I am still very interested in the corruption angle of this case because it's very important that we uncover that. But now it's all about justice, really, for these survivors. And the criminal justice system, they dropped the ball, folks. They really messed up. They really screwed the pooch. They had a chance to put this man away several times, and they didn't. And the only people that they have to blame for that is themselves and those low-level, mid-level, and high-level bureaucrats that are on the take, that are being finessed, that are scared to stand up and say, no more. Well, since they do not have the courage to do that, it's left to the survivors to step in and make this happen. And because of their bravery, that is why we are where we are. If they never came forward and they didn't navigate those choppy waters, these people would have gotten away with it. So, the real heroes in this case, folks, the real heroes in this case are these brave survivors that have come forward to stand up and tell these sick bastards no more. And personally, I feel obligated to stand shoulder to shoulder with them, considering I was nowhere to be seen in 2008. Or 2009, or 2010. I had no idea what was going on. But this is not something that once you understand how deep it is, you understand exactly what it is, this is not something that you can ignore. This is not something that is going to go away. And this is not something that is going to get better on its own. You have to remove cancer like this, or it spreads. From the very beginning, the case against Jeffrey Epstein was not merely a question of bringing an alleged serial sex abuser to justice. It was also a question of whether justice would prevail despite the power of Epstein's wealth and connections. And that is the perfect way to start off this piece, because it's the truth. Jeffrey Epstein's connections and the people that he ran with in so-called polite society did everything that they possibly could to help this man, to rehabilitate this man, and folks, straight up, to protect this man. You mean to tell me all of these people that were hanging out had no idea what was going on, right? That's what you want me to believe. You want me to believe that all of these famous people who were flying on the plane, going to the island, had no idea what was going on. Now, I don't mean everybody that was there was abusing children. That's not what I mean. I've been very clear about that. And I'll leave that to other people to take that leap. Here on this podcast, we work from fact. And we try to tie them all together. But you mean to tell me that I'm supposed to believe that all of these super smart, super wealthy, super powerful people are hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, and none of them did a little bit of digging? None of them dug a little bit deeper to see exactly who the man they were spending their time with was? I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. These people that are powerful and wealthy and that they run in these circles, they don't trust anybody. So the fact that people would say that they have no idea about Jeffrey Epstein, I had no idea what he was up to. Nobody's believing you, okay? That's just a bunch of BS and nobody believes it. And that's not going to get it done this time, okay? The first time around, that might have gotten it done because nobody was paying attention to what you scumbags were up to. But guess what? We are laser focused on you now. It's like the eye of Sauron is staring at you. For the most part, the justice system has failed that second question miserably. And the latest development in this never-ending outrage is only adding to the dismal record. On Monday, Palm Beach County Chief Circuit Judge Krista Marx threw out part of a lawsuit from the Palm Beach Post that seeks the release of the 2006 secret grand jury records. Now remember, Krista Marx has a bunch of ties to this case. She used to work for Barry Krischer, has connections to Ehrenberg, etc., etc., etc. There is no good reason why Judge Krista Marx should be the one hearing this case. Krista Marx should recuse herself and let a different judge sit and make this decision. She has way too many connections to what's going on here. And how the hell does the court allow this? Where is her boss? Where is the oversight? This is material that might explain why, at the very beginning of this long, sorry saga, Epstein wasn't charged with child molestation after a lengthy police investigation concluded he molested dozens of girls at his Palm Beach mansion. There has to be somebody who can override Krista Marx's decision here. Take it to the Supreme Court, whatever it may be, but do not let her be the final say here, because it's obvious that she has a lot to lose. Marx ruled that the newspaper had no standing to demand that the defendants in the lawsuit, State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg and Clerk and Comptroller Sharon Bach, produce the records. In a wonder of circular logic, she said that only a judge can order the records' release, but of course, she is a judge who could do so. And in another part of the lawsuit, which continues, the Post asked the court to do just that. See, this is what I was talking about when we were discussing this originally. These judges, they love their loopholes. They love their technicalities. And whenever they can get one of their buddies off with one of their technicalities, oh, you can expect that that is exactly what they're going to do. Because again, folks, remember, when the door closes and the lights come on, these people are all having drinks together, associating, and it's like WWE. When they're in the ring, they all hate each other. But when the doors close, well, it's one big giant club, and none of us are invited. Thus, we must all wait for further clues as to why Epstein led such a charmed life through the legal system. Epstein's good luck began after Palm Beach Town Police brought evidence of Epstein's multiple depravities to Palm Beach County's then top prosecutor, State Attorney Barry Krischer, in 2006. And now remember, Barry Krischer was supposedly a hard-charging, big-time prosecutor, a guy that really loved to slap the book at people like Jeffrey Epstein. And remember that he also attempted to throw Rush Limbaugh in jail for Rush Limbaugh and his pain pills. Now, you can like Rush Limbaugh or not, but that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, if you're charging hard after a guy who has an addiction to Oxycontins, you should probably be using that same sort of hard-charging mentality against a serial pedophile, okay? Probably a good idea. That's probably something you should think about doing, Barry Krischer. Instead of charging Epstein, Krischer convened a grand jury. Instead of that grand jury weighing a slate of evidence involving dozens of victimized teen girls, prosecutors presented just one witness, whose testimony they promptly undermined by asking the 14-year-old about underage drinking and hanging out with boys. I brought this up when we were talking about this yesterday or the day before, and it's such a ridiculous position for the prosecution to take. Why would the prosecution attempt to help the defense defame the girls and ruin their credibility unless they were in on the scam, unless they were hanging out with their buddy Alan Dershowitz and Gerald Lefcourt and the rest of the scum? There is no good reason why this would have occurred. The grand jury recommended one count of solicitation of prostitution, not even reflecting that the victim in question was a minor, because they were trying to help their boy out. The call came from on high, folks, okay? Whoever made that call, I don't know who it might have been, but there is somebody in the intelligence agency that made the call to make sure that Jeffrey Epstein stayed protected. And that person, my friends, in my humble opinion, was in the CIA. I've said this before and I'll say it again, and I've had this debate with a lot of my colleagues at this point. A lot of people want to act like the Mossad is, the de facto greatest intelligence agency in the world. While they're good at what they do, and no doubt one of the top agencies in the world, they are not the CIA. They do not have the funding the CIA has, and they do not have the reach that the CIA has. So if anyone thinks the Mossad was running this operation on their own in America without checking in with their own handlers, they are being very naive, and they do not understand how spycraft works in situations such as this. Because I'll tell you right now, the CIA's fingerprints are all over this operation, folks. Incensed, Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder took his evidence to the FBI. Ultimately, the federal prosecutor in Miami, Alex Acosta, later to become President Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, cut a deal with Epstein's high-powered team of nationally known defense lawyers. Shelving a 53-page indictment that could have jailed Epstein for decades, Acosta, working with Krista, allowed Epstein to squirm away with a guilty plea to 2 state prostitution charges. Now think about that. Think about how hard they throw the book at average people for average crimes. Now think about what Epstein got hit with and what kind of penalty he had to serve. There is zero chance that this just happens because he has money, that this just happens because he's famous. There were strings being pulled here behind the scenes that most people would be very shocked to know about. The fingerprints of the CIA are littered throughout this case. Epstein served just 13 months of an 18-month sentence, not in a state prison, but in the Palm Beach County Stockade, under the jurisdiction of Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw. Incredibly, Epstein was allowed to leave for work release 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, his supervision so light that he is alleged to have found the opportunity to force himself upon a woman. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Whoever the deputy was that was in charge of watching him when this alleged attack occurred should be charged as well. If you're taking the responsibility of keeping your eye on Jeffrey Epstein, and while he's in your custody, outside of the jail, he attacks somebody else, how is the state and the deputy not responsible? Now that Epstein is dead, found hanged in a New York jail cell last summer, new efforts are underway to understand how these multiple perversions of justice occurred, and to open new avenues for justice for the survivors who have outlived their tormentor. Grand jury testimony is traditionally secret, but state law allows grand jury records to be released to further justice. That's exactly what the Post is attempting to achieve, on behalf of Epstein survivors and the public at large. Look, there's no doubt that the Post has their own motivations here, right? Of course they do. They're a business like anyone else. They want to get these records out, and they want to be the company on record to do it. That's perfect. All I care about is the results. The results are what are important here, and the public needs to have access to these grand jury documents. The survivors most certainly need to have access to these grand jury documents, and their lawyers should have access to them. Because guess what? All of the people who were involved in prosecuting Epstein the first time around must be looked at once again for negligence. Marx is, at least, consistent. In January, she rejected another effort to unseal those records, this time by special prosecutors appointed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. She called their request a fishing expedition. This is the kind of judge that I'm talking about when I say that they rule their room like it's their own little fiefdom. She's running around her courtroom like she's Ramsay Bolton all of a sudden. It's a fishing expedition, so a special investigator who was appointed by the governor is on a fishing expedition, huh? Maybe you're on a protection expedition, Judge Marx. Yet the judge now faces her own questions of ties to power. Marx used to work under Krista at the state attorney's office from 92 to 98. Her daughter works under the current state attorney, Ehrenberg. Her son is a sheriff's deputy in the PBSO under Bradshaw. Spokespersons for the agencies confirmed. Now she has all of these ties, but refuses to recuse herself. She's really living up to that Marx name, huh? Who does she think she is? Marx, who ironically heads the state's Judicial Qualifications Commission, should have recused herself over this potential conflict of interest, or at least disclosed her connections from the bench so that her ability to be impartial in such a high-profile case couldn't be questioned. She did not do that. Then the reports came out, and now, not only is she being questioned, but she looks negligent. She looks inept. No one should have to wonder whether a judge's personal ties are biasing them toward protecting the county's courts and law enforcement institutions against embarrassing revelations that the records might expose. And of course she is. They all do this. They all want to shield each other. The whole entire establishment takes up for each other. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you are on. Republican, Democrat, anything in between. It is all a shell game. All of these people are in the big club, and none of you are invited. So here we are, after all this time, back to the question about the justice system that reared up all those years ago. Can anyone trust that in Palm Beach County, ordinary people can get justice when up against the rich and the connected? And not just Palm Beach County, let me add the whole world, okay? Not just the United States. I have listeners on like every continent at this point. And interacting with them, it's the same story world over. It needs to change. The establishment that has been created, this one world order basically that has been created, needs to be shattered. This is nearly year 15 in the Epstein saga. Dismayingly, the system is still failing the predator survivors and the public at large. Look, I don't disagree with anything that the Palm Beach Post editorial board just had to say in that article. When is the justice system going to be held to account? When are those agents that work within the halls of the justice system going to be held to account? Is there no law for them? Are there no rules for them? Do they just make things up as they go? Where is the oversight? We cannot have judges like Judge Marx rule their courtrooms like mini kingdoms at the detriment to the public and those that the courts and the prosecutor's office should be protecting. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, we'll be back later on with a little bit more.
Social justice. It's the effect of systemic progress. It's not about this moment. It's about every moment. It's not about immediate change. It's about constant momentum. Saybrook University has been doing the work since 1971, educating inquisitive, informed, and inspired leaders to change the world for the better. Learn more at saybrook.edu.
This week at Macy's, get 20 to 65% off great Valentine's Day gifts they're sure to love. Give them something amazing from the Effie Diamond and Gemstone collections, now 60 to 65% off. All sterling silver jewelry, 65% off. And more dazzling fine jewelry, 45 to 55%, plus an extra 20% off. Plus, Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.